Welcome to Interviews with Indie Authors. I'm your host, Winona Vale. Today we have with us AA Monet. She is an author, poet, and screenwriter. She does all things writing. Today we are talking about Lost and Found and all things that make you special.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So for our first question, can you tell me about your books?
Yeah, so The Lost and Found is a poetry book that I self-published in 2021. The key feature about Lost and Found is that the reader gets to name each of the poems. And that was really, really important to me because I feel like instead of just me telling you these words, it's like, how do you interpret them? And naming the poems allows you to do that, I feel like, a little bit better. All the Things That Make You Special officially released on June 8th, so it's very new. And it is a children's book, and it's a 3-in-1. So not only can the kiddos read, but they can also draw and color. So that was really important to me because that's never been done before, where you combine all these things. I'm like, what do you think about for books as a kid? You think of coloring books, you think of children's books. Why not have both? And so then I also threw in drawing because why not?
Please. Yeah. So first of all, I love all of the creative things that you bring to the table. You're welcome. So with all the things that make you special, first of all, I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet, but I was flipping through it.
Oh, yes.
So I really loved how it was like formatted, how it was like the text and then like the drawing.
Yes.
Text, drawing.
Yes. So that is how it's set up. On the left page, it's always like a your statement, and that's what makes you special. So your smile, your name, your words of affirmation and things like that, that's always on the left in color. And then on the right, it has the same illustration that's on the left in color. It has it on the right, but in black and white. So that's what they can color in, and obviously you can draw and color anything else in. And then underneath that on the right side is the drawing space. So I'm like, there's space for everything.
I love it. So do you have any experience like in the education field at all?
I do not. I was like trying to think. No, not at all, actually. My niece asked me for a book dedicated to her right after I released my poetry book. And she calls me Tum Tum, and she's like, Tum Tum, where's my book? And I thought she was just gonna, just let it go.
She was like, where's my book?
Yes. You know what, honey? Your book is coming. So that's where All the Things That Make You Special came to play.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
I love a little backstory. Because I work in education, and the whole time I was like flipping through it and talking about it, I was just thinking about like how perfect it is for a classroom setting. Because like it's so teachable, because like, for example, I used to be a speech path, and so we would take the kids back in like a setting like this, and then we would just like all like work on different like goals. So some kids, it was like R sounds, S sounds, whatever. So a lot of the time you'd have to, because your schedule is so packed, you'd have to like squeeze everyone into like big groups. So then like something like that's perfect, because like you could like do, like you could even put like a plastic like film over it or something like that, and like color it in with like dry erase markers or something like that. You could like underline
That's
like
super cool.
Yeah, just like my teacher brain going. But like, so for example, if it's about like your smile, if a kid's like working on their S sounds, you do like, oh, this will be like your thing to read. And then if it's like a kid working on their N sounds, this is like your thing to read. So
I love that.
Yeah.
After I put it out, I was like, I'd love to partner with schools, but when I was going through it, I was like, this is for my niece, and she approved the words. That's cute. I was like, as long as she says it's okay, then that's all that matters. So, but yeah, that's good to know. I'd love to partner with schools and figure that out, because I'm hopeful that it's helpful.
Yeah, it's really helpful, because it's all about how can we create a lesson that is like equitable and diverse for all the people in the classroom. So whether they're just starting to read, or like for example, I also did like a before and after school program. It was K through 5th grade,
Okay.
all in one room. Yeah.
Okay.
So like 65 on a good day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
a lot. So like something like that, like it's teachable for everyone.
Mhm.
Like, cause we all need a little reminder that we're special
Yes,
sometimes.
yes. And I'm like, who doesn't like to color and draw? Because I say the age range is like 2 to 8. That's like what I specified on Amazon. But really, I want to color.
Yes.
I want to color. I
Yes.
want to draw.
That's my favorite thing about like working with kids is that I can do all of my favorite things.
Right.
Like I can
Puzzles.
Yes, like I can throw down on Candyland, like jump rope. I was teaching on like Mousetrap, you know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I like that. I love it. And I love that you said diversity, and that was one of the things I was intentional about with the illustrations
Mhm.
is skin tone
Yes.
and the different illustrations. And that's why I wanted to also offer it in black and white, because if it didn't resonate with you, then you could draw it yourself. You could color it, and it would look like you. So that was
I love
important too.
that.
Yeah, representation matters. So.
Being able to not only like have it reflected on the page, but if it doesn't, still have the option. Like that's so powerful, especially in the classroom.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
I'm learning so much.
Teacher approved. Can you tell us a little bit about your poetry book, Lost and Found?
Yeah, so that is my heart for sure. The poetry book was everything from getting over imposter syndrome and just being nervous about like, it felt so specific, the poems in there, because it's a lot of it came from heartbreak. And so I'm like, is this relatable? You know, and I know heartbreak, everyone has that, but the poems that I wrote felt so specific to experiences, you know, specific experiences. So I'm like, if people read this, you're like, girl, this only happened to you. You know, so I'm a little nervous about that. But yeah, so that took probably about a year and a half. I wrote it during COVID. 2020, the start of COVID, and I was just like, okay, and I told myself, and I often attribute poetry to writing myself out of darkness, because that was the darkest I had been at that age. And so having poetry to release was really important. But my poetry book is separated into 3 sections. So each word of the title is its own section. So lost is one, and is another, and found is the third one. And I wanted "and" to be its own section because I feel like we talk about being lost, we talk about being found, but we don't talk about how we get there.
Yeah.
You know, so I wanted that. So "and" is my favorite section.
I really love it.
Okay, awesome. And "found" was my hardest, and yes, it was my hardest to write because I'm like, how many times can I say I'm found? And from a poetry perspective, right? It's like, how many different ways can I say that I found myself? So that was actually the hardest section.
Yes, no, I get what you mean because I'm also writing a poetry book sort of about like similar topics. It's called Lost in the Desert.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So the first part I wrote maybe like a year ago.
Okay.
It all came from a mental breakdown of turning 25. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm unemployed. My life is amounted to nothing. What is going on?
Yeah.
And so I wrote a whole bunch of poems. That's the desert, and then it's gonna be like through the forest, and then end at I think like the ocean or something like that.
Yeah.
But like going through like the end part, I'm like, like I don't know, like
Right. Yes. Okay. Good for you.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
super exciting.
It is
Awesome.
exciting.
I can't wait to read it.
Thank you. I actually performed 3 of the poems at a poetry open mic for Spotlight Poetry.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
I saw your posts, but I didn't know which poems you did. That's
Yes.
good.
Speaking of, are you doing the poetry slam?
Is it this month, right?
Yes.
The 18th?
The 17th.
17th. Is it the 17th?
I think.
It's one of, yes.
Maybe.
I wanted to be a vendor because they're
You are?
bringing in an amazing poet as the feature.
Okay.
I think I don't know if she's from Baltimore or Texas, but she's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And I just recently stumbled upon her Instagram account. I'm like, oh my goodness, she's awesome. So
I'll have to check her out.
a little bit of intimidation. So
Yeah, right. I'm scared to look.
I was like, oh, okay. So I'm excited to be a vendor and kind of show off both of my books because this will be my first time as a vendor at Spotlight. But I'm just happy to be in the room, in the space, because when they had the women's only slam, amazing. Everyone who went up there and touched the stage, I was like, how are the judges gonna score this and things like that. So the talent here is just awesome.
So do you have any tips for spoken word poetry?
I personally didn't want to perform if I didn't have it memorized, but I've seen a few people perform without it being memorized. So I thought that would have been something that the judges would have like docked points for. It depends on the judge since it's randomized. But no, I don't. I think having, last time it was tied. So instead of having 3, a lot of people needed to have 4 and they had less time to perform that one. So maybe just having one in your back pocket. But just going up there and owning it and being, you know, like, cause I usually try and switch mine based on what other people are doing and what they're saying. And sometimes that's okay, but really just walk, you know, just step up there and be like, this is your time, own it, we're here for you, you know, and just be confident about it, because at the end of the day, getting up there is the hardest part, and that's super courageous. So I'm gonna be right there, ready to just snap, and you know, because that is the hardest part. So
I'll see you there.
Yes.
Because I'm competing.
Good.
So,
Good.
I'm terrified.
No.
So I haven't done a spoken word poem since high school.
Okay.
It was for an assignment.
Okay.
And I saw the post and I was like, I really want to talk my shit on a rooftop.
You should.
Like, that sounds so cool.
Yes.
So, because I've been like so angsty and like turmoil lately. So it was like, I need like a creative outlet. So I was like, okay, there's like an hour and a half between like the post and the signups. Okay. If I can make a poem in an hour, I'm gonna sign up, and I did. And it's still a work in progress, but I still have to write like two to 3 more poems. Yes. But I have like the topics I know I want to write about, and they're all political. Like they're all very like politically themed. So I'm very fired up. So I know the words will come.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. That when you know the topic, the theme, it's like okay. Now we just got to figure out how I want to say it. And,
because I've been collecting titles.
Right. Yes. No, you do great. That's so awesome. Yes. No. Just do it. Yeah. That's the hardest part. Even for myself, I'm saying that out loud because I saw who the feature was and I was like, I'll be a vendor. Let me just sit over here. But really, it's just the experience.
Yeah.
More than anything.
And the thing is I don't expect to go past the first round.
You should expect. You never know. It's up to the crowd. That's the amazing thing about random judges is that they could be rocking with you. In the powerhouses that you would think would be, they could be like, they curse too much. You never know. You know, or the topic. They could be like, she talked about religion, I'm not religious, and that could be a lower score. You literally never know who's going to make it. And I love that aspect that it's, you know, it's not biased.
Yeah, it's scary, but I'm excited.
Anything's possible.
Yes. Because like I know the topics are good. I know they're gonna hit home. Yes. But I am not known for my public speaking skills. Like all of this, very new to me, very new. Like in high school, I was the girl, like very like shrinking down, don't look at me. Like I would stand up and I would sound like I was gonna cry, like every time. Like I stood in front of people. So like when I went and I performed at the open mic, I sent a video to my friend and she said, you were so charming and you like lit up the stage and da-da-da-da. I've never seen you were like a whole nother person. And I was like, what the? I was like, really?
That's good. That stage, there is something that where it's like you can be like an alter ego, you know. Like a lot of performers will say, you know, Sasha Fierce and Beyonce, you know, like you can kind of embody someone else, and that's a nice excuse where it's like something just clicks. Like when people get cameras on them, they're either like, yep, or they're like, nope, you know. So it's like it just depends. So it's good to know that it kind of. Stepped up to the challenge, and you're like, you know, talking shit.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking my shit on a rooftop. Like,
oh my gosh, the vibes, yes, and they got the bar. It's so cute. So I love to read.
Yeah, I was like looking at the photos, so I was like zooming in. I was like, that's so cool.
Yes, it's cool. You're gonna do amazing, and I'll say this to you as well on the day. I'll be there. I'll be like, don't even worry about it. Let's go. And then afterwards, we take a shot.
Yeah, right.
If you drink.
I don't take shots.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
I'll get a
I'm
mixed
a
drink.
flavored shot, like a lemon drop shot.
Okay,
I can't
I'll
do
try
straight
that.
because
Yeah, I don't do.
my
Yeah.
body is like, do you love me? I'm like, you're right. Straight is kind of crazy.
You're like, sorry.
Right. Water. Yeah. So.
Okay, sorry.
No,
Back to
but-
books.
yes.
This is always my issues. I always go off topic. So, Lost and Found.
Yes.
My process of writing is title based. So a lot of the time, I'm like am inspired by like a specific line or like the starting line or the ending line are often like what I want the title to be.
Gotcha.
So the fact that there's no titles in your book is like mind blowing. So I'm wondering, like, did you have titles in mind and you just chose not to like put them in for like the
As a little workaround, I actually had close to no titles. And so when I was going back in the editing process trying to title them, it felt like I was forcing the titles. And then also it felt like I could think of different titles for just one poem.
Yes,
so, yes, I was like, so why not
limit it?
Exactly. Why not leave it? And where really prompted it is I like to go to art museums. And I went to an art museum and it was a painting with like a whole bunch of blues. And I'm like, okay. And then I read the caption and it said ocean. And I got disappointed because I was like, what if I wanted it? I was like, what if I wanted it to be sky or sadness or you know what I mean? Like it almost impacted it just I was like, no, that's not what I was getting. And so I was like, I don't think we realize how often a title can impact that interpretation of the art. And we say that art's interpretation and then we tell you how to interpret it with the title. Granted, 3 of my poems in my book do have titles because they're the section dividers. So that the Lost and Allergic Reaction and Like Eve and Found in a Maze. So 3 of them technically do have titles.
Yes.
But I didn't want most of them to.
Okay, so I absolutely love the idea, first of all, when I saw you perform at the Poetic Gems event.
Okay, yes.
And like you were like getting like the crowd involved and like oh my gosh. And your stage presence. Because it was that event. Because we met at the Analog Roses event. You were vending.
Yes.
And then I saw you again at the Poetic Gems event.
Yes.
And at that event, that was like the first time I had like been in an environment like that since high school.
Wow.
Because I was in a creative writing class and I was like, oh my god, this is just like my creative writing class. But like adult version and like cooler. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to be up there. Like I want to do what they're doing.
I love that. Yeah.
And like the whole time I was just like, this is so cool. Like they're so cool.
About cool kids. No, that's good to know because I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and the poetry scene there is a little bit different. And then I was in Maryland for 4 years, so that's a kiss away from Baltimore and DC, where that Busboys and Poets. And so it just was interesting to come into what my performance was going to look like and how it was going to be specifically AA Monet. And I'm like, well, I can use this no title to my benefit and ask the audience to title it. Now, there's been 1 or 2 times where the audience is like, girl, but thankfully I've had a little plant of a family or friend in there. And they'll be like, all right, I'm gonna yell this out again. I said this last week, right? Literally, I'm like, thank you. But sometimes they're not feeling it. And I think that's kind of like the gamble of like, but I didn't used to, I've perfected my intro. Because I used to say the poem and then ask them, and I think, little things about it, right? Yeah, so they're like, "What, girl? What'd you say?" Like, so I'm newer. I am still newer to performing, as well. So I'm still figuring out and playing, and that's the cool thing I think about being in open mics is that you get to play and see what works, what doesn't. It's kind of like comedians. I feel like they got to see what lands. I'm like, hi, do you want to name this? Okay, thanks, let's name it. Right. Please name it. Let's both be here together. Yes, and then people do. That was a really good one where people were shouting out. Yeah.
I really enjoyed it because I feel like, especially sometimes when the poems can be a little bit longer, back to back to back to back, your brain can kind of drift a little
Yes, every time.
bit. Yeah,
So it breaks it up.
yeah, and it like gets you like more engaged. You're like, oh wait, hold on.
Yes, I
Like,
have an assignment after this.
yeah, like I gotta lock in.
Yes, and figure out what I want it to be. And then I think people in the crowd can tell how different even their interpretations are. Because you're like,
Yeah.
we're all focused in on this, but how did you get butterfly? But then how did you get ghost? You know, it's like kind of like an interesting communal interaction, which is really, really important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we were setting up the little like purple tabs that fell out,
Oh, yes.
so those were the tabs I used the first time I read through like the majority of the book.
Oh, okay.
And so every time I read it, I'm gonna use different tab colors so I can track, one, how many times like I've reread it,
Mhm.
two, like if I get a different meaning, like at a different point in my life.
Yes.
Because I feel like that makes a big difference of just like what is going on, like personally,
Yes.
when you read it.
I love that. My mom is the first to say, when she's been at my vendor table, she'll be like, so what I do is she writes her titles in pencil and then puts the date next to them. Because she's like, I may not feel this way in 2 years, that what I got from it, right now. And I'm like, okay, mom, it'll be the first. She's like, what I do? I'm like,
What
so
I
cute.
do.
Right. I'm like, so cute.
She's like, you don't have to do that.
Right. She's like, I mean, unless you want the permanence on the pen. I'm
She's like, but it's a really good one.
Right. She's like, it's a good idea, but up to you. I'm like, all right, I love it. But it's so cool to hear people's different approach on even naming it. It's like, I mean, I feel this way in a month, let alone 5 years. So.
Exactly. I feel like it's the perfect book to like get you out of a reading slump, or if you're stuck in the doom scroll and you just like need like something to like make you feel like a human again. Like I feel like it's a very grounding book. Like I feel like it, like even though you're talking about how it's like very like specific to like your experiences, they were very relatable.
Okay.
They were very relatable. And like for example, like a couple years ago, well it's been more than a couple years, it's been a while, but my ex had cheated on me, and rude, and
literally. Got it.
Yeah. So like I'm not saying like I enjoy like reliving the heartbreak, but like it reminds me that like it's so easy right now with the world crumbling around us to not like to feel so frozen and to like feel like a shell of a human being. And so like even being reminded of like negative emotions and negative memories, like it's still grounding in a way, because you're like, oh, like I am a person and I have overcome things, and like I did get through that, and like now I'm in a really good relationship, and like love is real, and like
that's how far you've come. But even to read, and that's why I love poetry, is because that permanency. And I would always say like it remembers for me. Because I don't always have to hold this anymore, and that's why I started writing. Is because I'm like, whew, it's like a transfer where I'm like, but every time I read a poem, I remember that initial feeling. And I'm like, that is so powerful that 10 years from now, I'm gonna be like, oh, sweet little 2021 autumn, like bless your heart, and like you're emotional, and I always will be, like, and that's the beauty of poetry, is that it stays there, but it still has space, which is really important. I don't want it to just be like okay, I wrote it down and I forgot about it. No, I wrote it there for it to be able to breathe and live in that space forever. And to me, that's the dopest part. I'm like, thank you, poetry. Like, hold it down. Look over here and probably have some other emotions, but thank you.
It's really lovely to like look back and reflect, like the beginning poems that I wrote for Lost in the Desert. Like they were so existential and just like so like I'm just feeling fucking scared right now. Like what do I do? So like whenever I feel like just like down and just like, oh, like what does life come to? And like I'll read the poems and be like, yeah, like you have come far. Like it's only been like a year, but like you like when I wrote the poems, I didn't even have an idea like for this podcast or anything. I was literally just like, I'm gonna write a poetry book before I turn 25. And like I wrote the first draft.
And that's starting. Yes, but it's a nice reminder of being like, because you forget, right? And then you go back and read your old poems. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, I was going through. I was also going through, kind of thing. And it's like, oh, wow, now look at me. And then with these, your poetry can often. It often aligns with that growth in life, because then your poetry gets stronger and things like that, because you're able to articulate it in different ways, in stronger ways, with better imagery and things like that. So that's cool.
I feel like I'm in like the end stage.
Yes, I often ask and it's cool. My immediate family, they'll randomly say like, "I'm in the and phase right now," or they'll say, "We'll talk like as if we're in in the poetry book," which I think is so cool. Because I'm like, thank you guys. And recently I was kind of more in the lost phase, and so it's just like it's cool to be able to attach it to something, and then I go back and read that section when I feel like I'm in that phase. Because I don't read the whole book often, but I read the phases often. Like I'm like, okay, right now I'm feeling found, I'm feeling good, and I'd like to keep that energy up. And I'm like, I'm feeling a little uncertain, So it's just cool to be able to have spaces for it.
Yeah, I really love that. I think it's just like a good reminder how like cyclical it all is.
Yes,
like it all, like you're never just found.
Exactly.
Like you're found, but like. And then you're lost again.
Exactly. And that's what I say in the beginning is it's an unending cycle of feeling lost and you're found and feeling found and you're lost. I was like, at first I had to read, I'm like, does that make sense? And I'm like, it makes sense to me. But I feel like you can find yourself in something and lose yourself in something at the exact same time. Like, oh, okay, I found myself in whatever. My friendships or something like that. I lost myself in how, my weight. It's like there's always something that it's never just like, oh, Autumn is 100% found. I don't think I ever will be. And that's the whole idea of self-improvement, is that probably really shouldn't be. There needs something needs to be worked. A blinder about something.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you think you're good, you're probably
right. So bless your heart. Did you go to therapy? Because that'll tell you some stuff. Like,
just or just a little bit.
Right, like, okay.
So, can you tell me a little bit about your writing setup?
Yeah, so I absolutely love my apartment. It is a 2-story loft, and the reason why I love it so much, the setup, is that it has this little cutout space, and I call it my creative corner. And so I have this like mini bookshelf and this really comfortable chair where I can put my feet up, and like it's just. And I have lights behind it, and then I also have a window like for during the day writing. So I really wanted to cultivate a space that was specifically for creativity, especially a couple of my older places that I lived in Maryland were studio apartments. So everything was in one, it was like you couldn't really divide things up as easily. And I work from home because I'm remote. So I'm like, I'm always at home. And I still am remote. So I'm like, okay, so my creative corner is heaven. Like I literally will light a candle, and I have my laptop always, because I'm a writer, a proposal writer, my 9 to 5, so I'm really used to typing, and I can type as fast as I think. So that's pretty good, because I think our thoughts are running, and some writing.
That's a really good skill.
But also I know that there's I've done workshops about the importance of kind of slowing your brain down a little bit as well, and kind of not editing, because I can delete just as quick as I can type. So there's something about just letting it be in its natural state. I haven't gotten to that part yet. I know it exists, but for me, just typing as fast as I can think really helps it just be flow a little bit easier. So usually at night, I guess maybe the college student in me, I would always write my papers at night, so I still have that in me. I'm like, so I totally get that. I don't know, I come alive at night when it comes to like my ideas and just getting it out. So I usually write at night. We'll have my little lights, strings of lights going, turned on. And I listen to, it's called on YouTube Sad Violin. And I've been listening to that since I started college. It's like 2 hours long. She's like, a still image, it's like blue and black or something like that. That literally is my go-to. And I just go into flow state every single time, which I feel like took a long time for me to understand,
Yeah.
first of all, what flow state was for
Mhm.
myself, and then second of all, how to tap into that instantly. So now anytime I write, if it's poetry, if it's a screenplay, I'll play sad violin, sometimes lo-fi, the hip-hop lo-fi
Mhm.
channel on YouTube. One of those two, I'm locked in. Especially if I have like my little headphones on, you were like, Autumn, it's been 2 hours. And I'm like, oh, so that's, I'm like, oh, beautiful. Like that's such a cool thing to just be able to zone in and zone out at the same time in that way. So my writing process, I usually prefer just to be like just focused in with some instrumental music. There's no stopping me. And when I'm plugged in like that, it's good.
So how long did it take you to write Lost and Found?
Lost and Found, about a year and a half. I started writing them in high school. I had a couple. I think it's like poem number 2 about the butterfly and moths. It's like, I think that one has been my longest poem that I've had, and that was the first one I decided was going into my book. And in college, they let me, any chance I got, I was like, can I do a paper for my final? Even if it wasn't in English.
Okay.
They're like, okay, so like how? And I'm like, and they're like, okay, so I was basically doing like a research paper instead of a final, because I'm like, this little info dump and then I walk away and forget is not beneficial to me. So I really wanted to write papers so I could remember and keep them. And a lot of times I said yes, but one time in a speech class, it had to be like a persuasive speech or something we had to put on, and I got to use that poem. And so I literally was like, I was finding any way to put in poetry or, paper any way I could. But it probably took me a total of 2 years to fully get serious. Because the first year was just like, I was just writing, didn't think it was going to go into a book. And then once COVID hit, I'm like, I have no excuse but to be with myself. So what is going to come out of this? And I was really hard on myself because I'm like a productive, check off a list type person. And so I had to write down little small things that I was accomplishing every day. And often I was like, I wrote a poem today, and that was like a huge thing. And I just kept writing, and birthed Lost and Found. so that one, that took everything out of me from like self-esteem, everything. I'm just like, I'm doing it. And then my coworker, my current coworker, still actually created both of my book covers.
No way.
Yes, he developed both of my book covers for me, and it was funny about the light bulb, because it started to look like a crystal ball at first. And so we were like, and then it started to look a little crime detective type. And so we were just like, because this isn't an obvious poetry book. People at vendor events, they'll walk up and they'll be like, Lost and Found, is this about like lost children? Like they'll just guess anything. And I'm like, it's actually poetry. And I'm like, really? No. And so then they flip through it, and so, but it's not an obvious poetry book, which I kind of wanted. Just for you, I wanted people to want to walk up to it. And then once you walk up to it, you're sold, but you have to, the allure of it. So he designed both of my book covers.
Wow.
And the book covers are everything to me. Like,
Snaps.
yeah, thank you, Josh. So but about 2 years.
Wow. And then, so what about For All Things That Make You Special?
8 months. That one was a rush. Yeah, I was like, we expedited it, which was so interesting because I call myself the female Edgar Allan Poe in terms of poetry. So writing a children's book was almost comical to me because I'm like, happy? I'm like, easy rhymes? It just was a struggle for that side of my brain because I'm like, I like to talk about the dark things. And so this one, I do book publishing for other people. So I'm really good at like timelines. And I looked up when my poetry book was released on Amazon, and it was June 12th. Around that time, it was around June. And so I was like, my mom was like, why not do the exact same date so they can go? But then I looked up when National Children's Day is, and it's June 8th.
Okay, so then it was June 8th.
Yes. So, and so that was where that came in, of releasing it on June 8th as opposed to it. But writing it took shorter amount of time because I had a clear vision. I was like, all right, to my niece, I call her Sweet Baby. She calls me Tom Tom. Nicknames for each other. Yeah, she's my heart. And I was like, okay, honey, Sweet Baby, what do you want the book to be about? And she's like, I don't know, about me. And I'm like, See, I'm gonna put it out there for
Oh,
everybody, right? Like, enough said, right?
Yeah.
Drop Spike. And I'm like, well, if we're gonna put it out there, I want other kids to be able to, resonate, and be able to resonate with them. And she was like, okay, maybe like all the things that make me special.
Oh, that's so
And
cute.
a light bulb went off, and I was like, you know what?
You're like, that's a great title,
That's
girl.
exactly what we're going to do, honey. And then I did each page a different your statement. Your smile makes you special. Your world makes you special. Whatever it may be, everything about you makes you special. But let's break that down for you to focus on that.
I love that, especially because like back to the education side of it, it's probably one of the harder parts about working in education is seeing how parents treat their children and how it's not always loving and so clearly right in front of you. And like it's one thing to be nasty at home, but it's another thing to be nasty in public where everyone's watching. And it's another thing when then your kid has bad behavior because they're not getting enough attention at home. They're not getting that love. And so reminders of like all the things that make you special, like that's so important because some kids just don't get told that, like genuinely. So like, it's like a really like good thing to have, like back pocket, like that, like, and it's such a good gift too. Like, oh, you have a baby shower coming up?
Here you go, yes.
Oh, your sister's pregnant?
Right, literally, easy. No, I think my favorite your statement is your affirmations. And the first like 3 lines is explaining what affirmations are. Because like, what are you saying? And then the next, like it's like 12 lines or something, but I am statements. And in the mirror it says I am special. And so, and that's the last one in all of them, which is another nod to the title. But the power of your words, and thinking about that at an early age. I am creative, I am loved, I am seen, I am heard. Like that's what all of these like I am statements are. And for me, I'm just learning the power of the tongue in the last like 2-3 years, and how I'm like, oh wow, what I say is what I see, and like what is my reality. So that's probably my favorite one, where I'm like, okay, if nothing else, this is very AA Monet, like if nothing else. But that's good to know.
Yeah, and it's really important to like not only teach kids that, but like ourselves that, like the importance of like affirmations and like self-talk. Teaching a kid to do that, like, is so powerful. Like my parents never taught me affirmations. Like they told me I was special and they, you have a great smile, you're this, you're that, but like they didn't teach me to like say that to myself. Like they're just like, be self-confident. You're like, how?
There's a part missing here. The second part. Yes. Oh, yeah, no, that's real. And that's really warming to hear, because I met you obviously at the vendor event, and there are people who you just feel that instant connection with, and you hope that they feel it too, which I believe that we both felt it. But to follow up, and we continue to bump into each other, and now we're here with each other, like, and this is a permanency moment as well.
Yeah.
Like we've had this moment together and this exchange, and that is the most powerful thing as well for me. It's like, I'm so happy I'm here to talk about my books, but I'm so thankful that I am able to be in space with you right now in this way. And good for you, literally, for doing this, and I feel like the stars are aligning. I had to do it. Had to go corny for a second. But no, I'm just very thankful to be here. Seriously.
I'm so thankful that you're here. It really means a lot that people are trusting the process. It's really cool because like I have this vision. This will be like an archive. Whenever someone doesn't know what they want to read, or just like needs a little bit of comfort, they can come listen to the podcast. And
it's timeless. That's a nice stamp of like, okay, we were here, we exist, and you can
This
find
happened.
us, right? This happened, it's nice to have those kind of like tangible things now that we can actually can look up and see, because they're trying to, banning books and everything like that, and erasing, history. So there are things that we can continue to stamp as true as, as something that happened.
Yeah, it feels a little like mind-boggling sometimes. You look like, whoa.
Like, is this really, are we in a scenario or a simulation?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
It doesn't feel like real life.
It does not. And part of the American dream, supposedly. Right
So
now.
fun.
Right. Talking about, I feel like it's a nightmare right now, but we're calling it an American dream, so.
Yeah, fuck them. Can you tell me a little bit about your screenwriting?
Yes. So I do all things writing. So screenwriting has been the newest thing that I've added on. I went to my first film mixer this last October 2024, and I fell in love with realizing the possibility of something I write being on screen. I'm like, wait, that was always a thing, right? I'm like, whoa, this is pretty powerful. And the mixer was for finding a team for the 48-hour film project that they have every year here in November. So after the first mixer ever that I've gone to, I met half of my team at that first mixer, which is I felt like unheard of. I'm like, wait, and actually, some people will talk oh yeah, maybe we'll partner, maybe. Everyone was very serious. They're like, okay, we're doing this right now. Right, so no, this is happening. And I'm still really close with one of the actors. And the team in general, but definitely grew really close with one of the actors. And it just was a great experience, because I'm like, what? And I'm obsessed with Disney Pixar short films. I've seen them all. I keep going. And so my goal would be to have my own short film, Pixar short film, that I would just be like, that's so cute. And then I'm a Marvel's fan, even though y'all need me, because I'm like, what was that? But I'm like, please. But I wrote a slice of life short film for the 48, and the screenplay got nominated for 2 different nominations. So that was a pretty cool thing for my first one. And so now I've just continued to write out a couple animated ones. And I just am looking for partnerships right now, looking to be on set to see how, because each set looks a little bit differently and there's a lot to learn. But the eventual goal is to be a writer/director. I'd love to be in the director space, but I have so much more to learn before I want to fully take on that title. But that is the goal. I've taken some acting classes and, just diversifying, what my roles can be, but honing in on screenwriting, because at the end of the day, everything goes back to the script. So that's always going to be a skill. So
It's a really different experience, going from poetry writing to screenwriting.
It is from a formatting space and from thinking about writing the things that people that aren't said. So it's like, okay, so how is this actor supposed to deliver these lines? You're supposed to give them guidance on that. And so really just thinking about every single thing, and to assume you never want to assume the intelligence of the audience, right? So it's you don't want everything to be so on the nose. I'm mad right now. Why couldn't I have just put my fist down and not have said that? And it could have had the same impact. So thinking about creative ways to say things without saying them. And then also to kind of ball on a budget. A lot of our films are going to be low budget and, until picked up by X, Y, or Z. And so it's how are you able to tell a story with $200? Things like that, where it's okay, so it's really forcing the creativity, which overlaps with poetry, and the ability to write and say things without saying things overlaps with poetry.
That's true.
So I'm okay,
it is kind of like a natural.
Yes, it is, but the formatting I think is the hardest part, the action lines and law, those things that you have to write in on a screenplay. But once you get it, you get it, but it's you have to visualize it all without seeing it. And out of that, it seems like that's a duh and that's easy, but you have to just think about all of the words that were written for your favorite movie without have ever seen it. Your favorite movie first. It's they had to write in all of those things where it's okay, character A and character B bump shoulders. Like, you think you take that for granted when you're watching, on the
Like, that
screen.
was
And it's like,
scripted.
right, literally, like, no, they wrote that down. Like, so it's kind of cool to think about, this is the blueprint, and then it comes to life. But you have to write the blueprint. And it's like, oh, kind of. So it's been a humbling experience. I've competed to some online competitions, and I'm just like fired up, and I'm so excited about it, but I'm also like, whoo. And the last one that I did was NYC Midnight Challenge, and it was a short film challenge, and there was 3 judges, and one of the judges gave me feedback and said that the screenplay kind of mirrored Black Mirror, and that was I'm like, can I put that on a shirt? Now I'm like, Black Mirror. I would love to do an episode. So that was a huge compliment, because they didn't know that that's the type of writer that I like, that I resonate with. That's the type of genre. So when they said it, I was like, they don't know me, I don't know them, they're judge number 2. But the fact that they said that, I was like, okay, I'm doing something right. So it's just been reassuring, but also humbling, because it's not what you know, it's who you know.
True.
For sure, that's being Hollywood 2.0.
Yeah.
We're all.
What are you currently working on besides screenwriting?
That's right.
Do you have anything else?
Like, what else?
I feel like us writers, we always got something up our sleeves.
I'm like, let me think. Okay, so my 9 to 5, I'm still a proposal writer. I have been for the last 7 years. So continuing to do that. We submitted 3 bids this week, and we're off tomorrow. So 3 in 4 days is. So I'm
right.
Yes, I'm over here like, it's the weekend. I'm like, what am I thinking? Very excited about that. So we'll continue to sharpen that skill of writing proposals to the government. That's super important. From the poetry perspective, this hasn't been posted yet. I just partnered, right? Like, hi. I just partnered with the Multicultural Bookstore to have my children's book there. Yes, so that's been really exciting. I always prioritize a Black bookstore in the city that I moved to first, and then anything else that happens is beautiful. But so got to meet Miss Carol. She's amazing there. So that will be announced probably towards the end of this month, because they are closed July 1st through the 18th. So they're closed for the first chunk of writing. I'm like, okay, so yeah, she has I think some travel and things like that she's doing. So I'll post that a little bit later, but still exciting. So looking to partner mostly with schools, book clubs, and things like that is my main focus. Just to do diligence to both of my books, but definitely the children's book.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye.